Kenya Private Sector Alliance to give us some perspectives into this very uncharted times. Thank you, Mr. Ngatia, for joining us on the show.
Okay, thank you, Abby, and good afternoon, viewers.
Well, interesting times indeed for Kenya's economy. From your quick and immediate assessment, are we likely to get out of the woods, and how soon?
Yes, we are likely to get out of the woods. If you look at how Kenya SME sector is organized and the way we are resilient, and we have seen a lot of innovative ideas from different businesses that have been able to navigate through the pandemic, which has hit most of the businesses very bad. We are seeing a lot of innovation. We are seeing a lot of flexibility from businesses, and also as KEPSA, we have come up with programs that are able to support the businesses in 4 areas. One is access to finance. How can the business access cheap and affordable finance? Then the second one is on the capacity building, where we have been able to build programs around training, mentorships, and coaching to businesses. Then the third thing is on how they can access markets, and we have also been able to ensure that they are able to tap markets through the digital economy, which is borderless and limitless in terms of how you can access markets. If you look at a business right now, you does not need to open a shop probably in Kisumu. You can operate from Nairobi and be able to serve your customers. So those are some of the programs that we have been able to come up with, and I'm sure I'll be talking more about our e-commerce booster program, which we have been able to implement this year. Then lastly, the other thing that we are supporting businesses on is on laws and policies, so that we ensure that businesses are the laws that are being crafted are supporting businesses so that they provide conducive business environment.
Interesting. And still staying with you, Mr. Ngatia, as much as we are looking at very robust set of programs to support small businesses, just give us an indication of how hard did the COVID pandemic hit small businesses from your independent reports that you've been able to come up with in regards to how are they faring?
Okay, based on our research that we carried on last year, at the end of last year, around October, we noted most of the small business, the micro businesses, that is the one that affects the common mwananchi. If you look at, so they were affected, most of them, 64%, were high or were high affected by the in terms of the impact. They were highly affected by the COVID impact. So meaning they require a lot of support so that they can be able to be more resilient and also to recover as we continue.
Interesting. And looking at the big picture, through the pandemic, Mr. Ngatia, it has been very interesting to see how SMEs have been able to devise different ways of staying afloat. And one of the ways is most of them went to the digital platforms, the digital marketplace. How is this playing out in this dispensation? And do we see opportunities for SMEs to scale up using the digital marketplace?
Sure, definitely. Based on the fourth generation, in terms of industrialization, digitization and the digital transformation of businesses is now the new norm. So that how do you ensure that you can be able to sell anywhere without limits in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the shops, in terms of everything. So you only need to go to the marketplace, and there are different marketplaces that are available, and we have seen a lot of SME try to move to that space, but there are some challenges because some may not have skills and capacity to move to that space. So that's where KEPSA came in and developed a program that was to support the SME to be able now to navigate in this new space.
Speaking about the SMEs that have gone through this initiative, give us the scale, because it's quite interesting to also hear the impact this has had.
In terms of scale, we were targeting around 2,000 businesses, but we have been able to impact over 2,500 businesses, and we have seen them now thriving in terms of ensuring that they can take advantage of the opportunities that are there in the digital space.
All right. And of course, the SMEs have been touted as being a key agents of change for our economy, looking at the manner and size they have been growing by. Perhaps looking into the future, it would be interesting to hear from you. What does the future portend for SMEs that perhaps do not rise up to the occasion and be part of such initiatives such as the Booster Program? What lies at stake?
If you look at how SME support the economy, over 80% of employment in Kenya is supported by SME. So meaning if the SME dies, the SME space dies, or the SME businesses dies, then it means there is a lot in stake in terms of employment opportunities. And that's one of the reasons that KEPSA, we are very keen in ensuring that we can grow those businesses, because if you look at they are employing over 80%, but if you look at their contribution to the GDP, it's around that percent. So how do we ensure that we can, ensure that they can contribute more in terms of GDP, and once they contribute more, they employ more, and they ensure livelihood for the Kenyans.
Interesting. And as we are continuing this conversation, our other guest has just arrived, Mr. Reuben Kimani, the CEO for Username Investments Limited. Thank you, sir, for joining us. I know quite a lot happening out there on the roads when you look at the construction, the infrastructure. And just coming in on the back of all this, we are looking at a time and space where the economy is still hurting from the impact of the pandemic. And from where you sit, how has business been? Are we seeing growth from the real estate frontier? Are we seeing stagnation? What's happening out there?
Thank you, Abi. I'm very happy to be in this place today. We look at the business environment. The pandemic is still there. I will talk about not growth, not decline. We are talking about stagnation. If you look at the different segments, especially of real estate, where I come from, you look at the residential housing segment, you look at the commercial, especially the office space, the retail, some of them have been seriously on a stagnation mode. The only part of the sector which I would say have experienced slight growth, a bit of stability, is the land segment, specifically regarding residential. Because if you look at the needs of a human being, we have housing, which is shelter, we have food and stuff like that. Despite the fact that we have COVID and other challenges, the fact is you must have a house. So you'll find that affordable properties, especially land, for people who want to build in satellite places. These are satellite towns. We are talking about Kitengelas, the Gongs of it, the Kangudo roads, and some parts of Remuru. You'll find that those places are still growing, basically because of the need. But we can't ignore the effect of the pandemic.
Interesting. And I'd like to stay with you, Mr. Kimani, because borrowing from what Mr. Ngatia brought up, looking at the SMEs and the role they're playing in just ensuring that the economy is back on its feet. And it is quite amazing to hear that land was still being sought after in a time where many households have been literally trying to stay afloat during the pandemic. Perhaps what's driving the real estate sector in these very unprecedented times?
Okay, I think I had mentioned about the fact that as much as there are challenges, people have to eat ugali. I think the same thing with some parts of the housing sector.
Sure.
The only part that has been affected is the investment part. We have a section of customers, of Kenyans, who want to put their money into real estate. That has been affected a bit because you must take care of the basic needs first. Maybe some people lost their jobs and incomes went down. Now, because you must take care of the basic needs, instead of investing heavily like they used to be, you just do what needs to be done to get your housing. Another factor that I would say is Kenyans have realized real estate as an asset, as a vehicle of investment, is usually very resilient over a long time. You may experience a decline in the short time. We are talking about a decline in 1, 2, or 3 years, but eventually after 10 years, you have an appreciation. It might go down in the short time, but in the long term, it will go up. So Kenyans have that kind of history where you are coming from 10 to 20 years. You look at Nairobi, our cities in Nakuru. Nakuru has become a city, Mombasa and stuff like that. Then you realize if you don't invest now, as much as the property prices are stagnant, in 10 years, they will go up and you'll not be able to do that. So people are pushing themselves, despite the decreased incomes, the taxes that have been introduced, and the tough times that you are experiencing, they are still putting some money into investment. So that accounts for growth. But I would like to say this. This is more to the affordable segment of the properties, because that's what you can afford at the moment. The expensive segment, I'm talking about the high end, those kind of properties have experienced serious stagnation. In some places, of course, maybe you may not be able to get a tenant as fast. In some places, you cannot be able to sell those properties going for more than 10 million. That's what is happening. But we are hopeful with the vaccines and the measures that are being taken all over the world. As I said, real estate is resilient. It will be able to come back and go back to the prices that we are used to. So we experience some awakening or some sort of recovery in the real estate sector.
Quite reassuring comments there, Mr. Kimani. And looking at the big picture, of course, give us the numbers. Year on year, how has the real estate performed? And what do you see in the horizon now that we're also going into another election season?
You've talked about elections, and I would like to say we are usually affected by events. COVID has affected real estate. We have elections. People are always afraid to put their money because they don't know the outcome of these elections. This is something, of course, we have to address as a country. If you look at appreciation of real estate, the numbers, we are talking about is usually 25% on average. You buy land today worth 100,000, you should be able to sell it. In some places, not all over in the country, in some places you should be able to sell it for 125,000 shillings. Of course, we also talk about the shortage we have in housing, which has been there. It is still there, accumulated of 2 million houses, 200,000 every year. Developers are only able to do that to 50,000, is still the case. Government have been able to do a bit of affordable housing. We are happy that there's something called Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company. I hope it comes into fruition so that people can get, even Mama Mboga, can be able to get a mortgage of sorts. They can buy properties from username investment. So we are hoping the situation will improve. The numbers will keep becoming better. Of course, we have seen, if you look at our statistics in the office, we have seen some little kind of growth in terms of the sales numbers, in terms of the growth numbers that we use to calculate these figures. And we are hopeful this will keep continuing as we go along and as COVID becomes something that is of history.
All right. And we'll still be getting back to Mr. Ngatia, who will be giving us some interesting aspects around how are SMEs thriving digitally. And we'll also be crossing over live to Embu County, where we have my colleague, and that is Moige William. He'll be speaking to the residents. What are their expectations? What has life been like during the COVID pandemic? We'll also still be coming back with Peter Theory, where we'll be getting some Olympic action from Tokyo. We have this and much more coming up after this quick